Tycoons have got a whole lot easier to build in 2025 thanks to the new stat manager devices that have recently been added to Fortnite Creative. There are 3 new devices total: the stat creator device, the stat counter device, and the stat Powerup device. This makes it so much easier to create custom stats instead of having to use the tracker device, which is pretty limited. So I'm going to show you how they work and give some examples of how you can use these devices within Fortnite Creative 1.0 because no verse is needed. So let's hop right into it. So when you open up the devices section, you will see these 3 new devices. The first one we will look at is the stat creator device. When you place it down, you can go into all of the settings. To start, you can name the stat you want to keep track of. So for this starting example, let's say we have a farming game and you need to collect peppers. So we will name this peppers collected. Next, we have the max stat value. This will be the max value of how many peppers can be collected before the stat levels up. For now, we will set this to 10 because we want to make it so that when you collect 10 peppers, you level up the stat, which brings us to the next field. Max level, similar to RPG style games, the stats can be tracked like a leveling system. Here we will want to set how many levels you can grow with this stat. So once you collect 10 peppers, you will then grow to level 2. Just for this example, I'm going to make the max level 5. Points per level multiplier. This is how you can control how to increase the max value upon reaching a new level. So for example, using our values above, if you put a 1.1 multiplier, then the level 1 would need 10 peppers, but level 2 would need 11 peppers because it is increased by 0.1. Level 3 would need 12 peppers, and so on. Can lose level from point loss. Using the stat Powerup device, which we will go into later, you can subtract stat points. This setting just makes it so that when stats are getting subtracted, and say you are level 2 and are at 0 stat points, then depending on this setting, it will revert you back to level 1 if another point is subtracted. Scope is just who the stat is relevant to, either player, team, or match. Team and class settings are pretty straightforward, similar to other devices. You can set it so only a specific team or a class has this stat tracked. Enabled phase is pretty straightforward, just sets when the device is enabled or not. When it comes to user interface, you can change the color of the UI and how it appears on the screen. You can choose whether or not that the stat actually appears on the screen or not. You can also set a duration so that when the stat changes, then it appears on the screen for the amount of time that you specify here. There are 3 types of user widgets that you can use. You can have default, compact, or tiny. You can change the stat icon to anything you like that is available to you here. There are also persistence options here, which will basically save the data so that when a player enters a new round or leaves and comes back, then their stats will be saved if you use persistence and the autosave auto load. Now you can already go in and see that the device is now working. On the left side, you can see peppers collected is now there in the corner. Now the next device that we're going to use is the stat counter device. This is how you can set up things like requirements. So for example, if we want to make it so that once you have collected 10 peppers, then you will gain 100 coins. We can make that happen with this device. So let's go through the settings, then we will do an example of what I just mentioned. First we have tracked stat, which allows you to select the stat that we just created called peppers collected. We are going to want to set up events to work with this counter, so for this example, we are going to tick the box for broadcast events on stat change. Here we will need to set up the compare type. This is how you want to compare the player's stats versus the stats needed to trigger an event. For this example, we are going to set this to equal or more. Now for comparison value, we will set up the value that the player needs in order to trigger the event. For this example, we will set it to 10. Compare per player just means if it needs to compare an individual in the map or all players in the map. So if there are 2 players playing and they both have 5 peppers each, then the event should still trigger. In this override section, you can determine if we set, add to, or subtract from the stat value when calling the override value function. Value override just determines the value you applied based on the override type option. You can choose if the counter is visible in the game, and you can also show which value to show, whether it be a comparison, the value, target, etc. Here you can choose to show the icon or not. You can choose whether or not that this affects just a certain team or class. Registered player behavior, you can either add registered, require registered, or ignore the registered. You can choose whether or not to have a background on it or not. Number length just means that you can add a certain amount of digits to it so that instead of just showing 10, it can show like this, for example, where it has 4 digits instead of just the 2 digits. Finally, we have the stat power-up device. This is the device you use to either add or subtract values to your stat. So if we do an example and want to make it so that when you pick up a pepper, then the stat will increase by 1. So here you can select the stat you want to apply, so we will select peppers collected. Magnitude is where you set the value you want to change by. If you want to make it so that when you pick up a pepper, it adds 2 to the stat, you can do that here as well. The maximum number goes pretty high. I believe it goes up to 10 million. Yep, 10 million, so you got a lot to work with here. Infinite effect duration. You can make it so that the stat change only lasts a certain amount of time with this option, and you can set that amount of time in the next field. You can choose the pickup radius of the effect here. Disables effects on pickups will make it so that if the option is set to yes, then the effect of this power-up will be cancelled when collected. You can make it so that the power-up responds so that it can keep adding or subtracting values. You can space this out with a timer in the next field here. You can choose whether or not to make the pickup spawn when the game starts, along with if there is audio when the power-up is picked up. You can choose here whether the power-up affects only a certain team or class. Apply to allows you to set who the effect applies to, whether it's the player, team, class, etc. Who can see this power-up is pretty straightforward, allowing you to choose who can see the power-up visually. Persist on elimination. When set, the power-up will continue to apply to players that have been eliminated and will still be applied on their next spawn. So now that we have gone through each of the devices, let's set up exactly what we mentioned before with the peppers being collected and how to set that up. Okay, so for the example, I've just put some random plants here, and I added an item spawner device with a pepper inside, and we're going to connect it to our power-up device, our stat power-up, so that when you pick up a pepper, it's actually going to get added to our peppers collected stat tracker that you'll see on the side of the screen. So in order to do that, go over to our item spawner, and on item picked up, we want to go to our stat power up, and we want to click pick up. Now let's just add a couple more peppers around the plants here. For this example, I'm going to change infinite effect duration to no and effect duration to 0.1. This will make it so that it doesn't consistently add on to your tracker when you pick up one pepper. We are also going to change the time to respawn to 0 on the power up. So now, as you can see on the left side of the screen here, we have peppers collected, our little tracker there. It's currently 0 out of 10 that we have. So when we pick up a pepper, it should change to 1. And just like that, see? Pretty cool. Now if we pick up more, it should keep going. And just like that, you can make a little stat tracker for your Tycoon games. Now, let's say we want to give gold to the player as soon as they have 10 peppers collected. So let's do that now. First thing we're going to do though is we're going to change the max value to 20 on our stat creator. And then we're going to grab an item granter device. Put that down. Always change to keep all unless otherwise necessary. We'll grab some gold. And we're gonna drop in 100. So now we want it so that as soon as the player gets to 10 peppers, then we're going to issue the gold. But there's a couple things that we need to do first. So we need to register this counter to a player so that it actually tracks the certain player's collected peppers. The easiest way to do this is by using the player spawn pad, and once you open it up on player spawned, then we go down to our counter and we want to register the player. Right, so as soon as they spawn in the game, this counter is going to be registered for them. Now, when we go into the events for the stat counter, on compare success, we want to change this to, or we want to add the item granter, and we want to make it grant the item. That way, when a player has 10, you will see that it works. Sometimes you may want to disable this as soon as they hit the 10. So what you can do is on item granted, we go back to the stat counter and we disable the device. All right, let's check and see how that works for us. So as you can see, it's a 0 out of 10 right now. So let's collect these peppers. And see, there you have it. As soon as we hit the 10, we got 100 gold. And you can also see when you pick up more peppers that the counter is no longer active because we already issued the 100 gold. Just like that. Now let's switch it up a little bit and show what it's like to make kind of like a leveling system. So whether you do it in your Tycoon or if you're making an RPG style game, this will be highly effective devices to use within your projects. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the stat creator and let's just name this level. And we're going to make it so that, I don't know, let's say the 100 is the max value, and you can go up to 5 levels. Now we want to make it so that, let's say when you eliminate a zombie, that you want to get experience points, and that's what's going to be our values from the stat creator. So let's make it when you kill a zombie, you're going to gain 100 experience points towards your level up. So let's see how that works. What we're going to need is a creature device. Let's say a creature spawner. Put that over here. And let's just say a normal fiend. And what we'll do, let's just do one at a time for now. And what we're going to do is on creature is eliminated, we're going to hook that up to our stat Powerup and click pick up. So what we're going to do though is we want to set the magnitude here to 100 because that's how much experience we want the player to get when they eliminate a zombie. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a weapon into the game here. So let's just see how this works. So as you can see, we are now getting experience for killing the zombies. Getting 100 at a time. Probably should have set it to like something like 10 to make it a little more easier on the eyes, but this is how we have it set up. Now you can see that it has gone to level max. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and some of these examples that I've shown you. I think this is a really cool device, and we're going to see a lot cooler games being made by people who can only use Creative 1.0. Obviously, in UEFN, there are more settings. You can actually make custom widgets so that it pops up in the side and make it look exactly how you want it to look. I'll probably do that in the future videos. I'm going to be doing more UEFN videos very soon, but I will still continue to make Creative 1.0 videos as well. So thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it more than you know. Please like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do. Let me know if you need any help on anything, and I'll always be here for you. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Stay spicy. I'm out. Peace.